I am willing to bet that you are today years old when you found out that there is a cult that controls the majority of the hair loss industry. And the worst part is, you probably belong to it unknowingly. I am AQBS, and this is Back to the Barber. My very first video I put up on YouTube is called The 2 Insidious Myths of Balding. Pretty bad thumbnail. I was playing around with it. Great concept, but not really a great execution, but that's another story. Now, my first YouTube videos went up about 2 years after I started this hair loss journey the second time. I've done it before 7 years ago, and I kind of quit because it took a very long time, and I just kind of got into other things in my life. There were some other bigger things I had going on, so I kind of moved away from it. And plus, I got stuck in one area, and that is the temples would never grow. I've actually found out why. So the second time around, I was much more prepared. But the YouTube videos that you're seeing now are pretty new videos, but I have videos going back 2 years, pictures, hundreds of them of my scalp, the videos I actually made, and you will see them as reaction videos later on, and you kind of get to see the real journey. Okay, so, but the first video I made was the 2 Insidious Myths of Balding, which is, it is inevitable and it is irreversible, and that is hair loss. I've come to believe from my experiences and research that those are myths, those are false, and they lead to a lot of frustration, a lot of dead-end paths for both men and women. But why and how does those myths stay so long? And how and why does the industry focus on just a minute type of therapies and fixes for hair loss? And when you look at the mainstream way of viewing hair loss, even down to the most recent medicines available, what they're attempting to do is stop hair loss in its tracks. What is so important about this is when you see these new hair loss videos of these major influencers and people who are kind of in the hair loss sphere, right? What you will find them is making videos on medicines, and these cosmetic lab-based solutions are making medicines, but when you break down the medicines of what they're attempting to do, and I challenge you to do this, you will find that they're attempting to create something that does not allow for hair loss. It simply does not allow for the hair to begin to get miniaturized by androgens mostly, right? And inflammation, which is, again, it's a great idea because you stop it right in the beginning. If there's no miniaturization, if there's no androgen issue, now has nothing to do with immune and all these other things, right? But at the same time, it'll cure 80% of it out there, right in the beginning. It's not going to cure the actual root cause of it, and eventually what will happen is you will start having other symptoms of a different problem, but that's a totally different video. To me, hair loss means there's a bigger omen that's occurring inside the body, and hair loss is symbolic of that. So even if you were to put on 1,000 pounds of makeup, it does not mean that you don't have wrinkles, right? You can hide the aging on the outside, but you cannot hide the aging on the inside, if that makes sense. Okay, so the 2 insidious myths of balding, how are they so pervasive around the industry? It's because of one major fact. Anybody who's in hair loss, I don't care if you are a lab-based solution with millions of dollars in order for research. I don't care if you're a herbalist that's down in your kitchen or a bro scientist like myself. I'm gonna tell you this one thing that you're gonna find across these thousands of videos, research papers, white papers, Google Scholar, all of these. What is that? That the follicle, when your skin or scalp goes bald, it is dead. Right? I'm gonna stop there for a second. You guys have to think about this logically. Can you tell me anything that's on your body right now that is dead that can stay? No, you can't. The only thing that you guys would say is nails and hair is dead. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at it logically, right, and just look at it for what it is, how can hair be dead or not alive when you can use real foods in order to make it thicker, healthy, and stronger? Can you make that piece of steak that you have in the leftovers in your kitchen right now, can you make it do anything else? I mean, you can make it swell up by putting water inside of it. You can make it taste better, but the point is, it's dead. There is no making it healthier from the inside. Maybe you can add vegetables to make it healthier for you to consume, but that's not the same exact thing. My point is, what is dead is in a solid state of death. There is no life in it. Life can be extracted from it based off of what it has inside of it. But more life can be extracted from things that are actually raw and uncooked. So the point I'm making is, and this will not be a short video for this very reason, hair is not dead, because if hair was actually dead, nothing we can do to put on top of it would make it better for you. There will be no such thing as shampoos, no such thing as conditioners. There will be no such thing as oils. There will be no such things as all these lab-based solutions that we do that actually say, if you use my product, your hair will be shinier and healthier. How can something be dead and be healthier at the same exact time? It's not dramatic. It's not an argument. It's not conflictive. It's fundamental truth. Something cannot be dead and healthy at the same exact time. And what is dead cannot be made healthier because it's in a state that cannot change. Now I'll get off my soapbox. Hair's not dead. Nails are not dead, because we know when you have a fungus infection and the actual nail dies itself, what it looks like. We've seen these before, right? And pretty much people have having to take off toes and get these things cut off if the skin or the toe dies, if the fungal infection gets too bad. Okay, we know that when body parts are actually dead, we have to remove them. We know, right? Okay, nothing on your body is dead, including the very follicles on top of your head. The same follicles that you had when you were 11 years old are the same follicles now that are still there. They are not dead. They are in a comatose position. Yet the industry speaks about dead follicles, because once you get to the quote unquote dead follicle stage, there's nothing that you can do except for get a hair transplant or wear a wig. This is a very, I think it's the third worst thing about hair loss is it is supposedly irreversible. That's false. It is inevitable. That's false. It's conditional. And three, that once a follicle stops producing hair, it is dead. But let me ask you a question. Once a tree stops producing fruit, is it dead? Not at all. So what makes you think when something stops producing a child that is dead? When a woman stops producing children at menopause, does that mean that she's dead? No. Okay. So my point is very, very clear. This follicle death cult is very pervasive around the industry, and a lot of these guys talk about it, this fear mongering around your follicles will die. As a matter of fact, most of the products, the FDA approved ones, the minoxidils and the finasteride, will tell you, if you read between the lines, hey, once you go bald, it's pretty much you go get a hair transplant. Now, great for surgeons, great for people who are attempting to stop hair loss before it happens. But what does that do for the people like myself that have severe Norwood 4, 5, 6, 7, me 7 plus? What happens when there's women who have frontal fibrosis? What happens to the alopecia patients? What happens after cancers? What happens after we get these infections and this inflammation? What happens with our lines that recede back, and all people tell you to do is to kind of keep the top? You know, Rogaine doesn't work for your frontal, it only works for your crown. It doesn't make sense. We know that frontal fibrosing calcification is what causes the skin to look skinned over, or the scalp to look skinned over, and we know that we could get rid of that slowly over time. If you could make yourself get villus hairs, then you can regrow your hair. And I am actually living proof of that, because when I was Norwood 7, I had not one terminal hair on top of my head. This is facts. I'll put up a couple of videos, pictures, so you guys can see that. Believe me, I have so much information. I am very confident in the way I speak. And believe me, these guys don't want to debate me, okay? They're not. Here's the thing. I can show you these pictures, and then I can show you a picture after that. And I want you to ask yourself this question: how the hell would I be Norwood 7 for a decade and regrow hair in an area that there was no hair previous, not even villus hairs, by the way? And I can tell you all about villus hairs because I had to learn. And now I have long hairs there. See them on the screen yourself. That's me. The tattoo will show you that. So what do you think? It can only be a few possibilities. If that was a hair transplant, believe me, that's a pretty bad hair transplant, by the way. Okay. And you'll be able to tell if it was FUT, I believe, the strip. You can see that's not it. So the point is, you can get your hair back if you understand that hair loss is a symptom of at the worst, some sort of immune response, at the least inflammation, or perhaps some sort of calcification, fibrosis. It is reversible when you reverse the conditions that causes hair loss. I am 100% sold on it. Not because I read it, not because he or she said it, because I live it every day. Right? 100%. I'm very confident in this. So this follicle death cult is what causes many men and many women to have such a viewpoint of hair loss that it is really inappropriate. Because you're actually thinking that when you look in the mirror as a 30-year-old man, that your hairline is 7 fingers back and it is just a mature hairline. So let me give you another fact. There's no such thing as a mature hairline. That's facts. When you stopped growing in height, remember you were 5'11" when you were 20 years old and you stopped growing in height, whatever your hairline was then, if you didn't have early hair loss, right? That's a different story. Normal hairline at 19 years old, that is the hairline you're supposed to have at 49 years old, right? Age will cause hair loss, but age also causes wrinkling. Age also causes all these other things like eyesight and all these things kind of go downhill. That's natural aging. Hair loss should be natural aging. There's no way you at 39 years old should look from the back like you are 79. 100%. It's not your fault, but the point I'm making is it's conditional. And when you reverse those conditions of the actual follicle itself, your hair loss will restore automatically. Facts. If you don't believe me, you will believe me in the next 20, 30, 40 videos when I start showing myself more on film, and then you'll have questions, but that's fine. So listen very clearly. You gotta get out that religion. You gotta kind of come up out of this belief system that the follicles die when you cannot see them produce hair. Your bald spot and or your receding hairline and or your thinning crown and or your overall thinning hair, those follicles have gotten stuck at the stage of telogen. That's it. They have released their child and they do not have enough energy, stimulation. They don't have enough power in the environment to support them to create another one. So they kind of stick in that stage, waiting for the stage. They're waiting for the right to produce another child, but they're not impregnated by the very environment. Thus, I call follicles feminine, where the environment is masculine. So here's the point. This whole follicles die is BS. Because if my follicles, and I did the test on this, there are 5 types of hairs that now I have on my head, and I'm going to go through one. You have the super responders. These are the hairs that came out first on my head, right from village hairs. You have the early adopters. Those are hairs that really followed the male pattern balding line to a T in little small packs. You have the mass producing or mass population, I should say, of hairs. That's what I'm starting to gather now. What is that? Those are hairs that will mimic the type of SMP tattoo look, where they're everywhere but very short. It took an extremely long time to get there, but I realized because of the trajectory of what I was doing, why it came to that way. And I came up with a phrase. It was called scalp conditions must be met and maintained, while time considerations must be kept to secure gains. I actually have that in my YouTube bio for a very reason. I realized that I had to get my scalp conditions met. What do I mean by met? Before I start balding, what was the conditions of my scalp? When I get my scalp back to those conditions, guess what? Hair loss will stop. Hair regrowth will automatically happen. This is why there is no automatic restoration of hair when men's DHT goes all the way down. I'm going to say that one more time. Why don't old men at 70, 80 years old with 90% of their testosterone gone, why don't they actually start regrowing hair? And this is a question that you find around across all industries, forums. Believe me, I've been on all of them, right? For years, we're doing research, like many of the commentators. Guess what? They never regrow hair. Why? Because the conditions of their scalp are still bad. Change the conditions, then you will restore your hair loss. So this whole follicle death cult, regarding they actually die and there's nothing you can do about it, I'm telling you, it's false, and that should give you hope to understand. If you do not see restoration or hair growth of villus hairs, here's your clues. Woman or man, listen very closely. If you do not see villus hairs, then you have follicles that are miniaturized. But remember, hair, they call hair miniaturization, but that's not the truth. It's the follicle that miniaturizes because it has lost its connection to circulation. And more than likely, it is because of fibrosis and calcification, which more than likely came from inflammation and infection-like behavior. More than likely, came from some sort of immune response, then more than likely came from a bacteria, pathogen, or parasite and or protein that got into your blood, and your blood stated or your scalp stated this is a problem. I would not be surprised as if your gut bacteria migrated to the scalp and it started the inflammation anyway. That's what my core belief is, okay? Now, this is why I take pro and prebiotics, and guess what? It works for that very reason, okay? Now, it's time to renounce this whole death of the follicle, this whole follicle death cult that is so pervasive out there. Because when you believe in this religion, then you would restore or attempt to restore your hair with limited options. Now you all feel like, okay, I got hair, let me use a derma roller to make it full. Instead of thinking, I know the follicles aren't dead, why are they in the comatose position? Now, respectfully, when people are in a coma, you're not feeding them more food, are you? No. You're giving them pretty much the minimum that's able to sustain and keep everything going. And what you're trying to do, if all possible, is to bring them up out of the coma. That's exactly what you have to do with your follicles, respectfully. If you believe they are dead, then you're saying, well, I used to have a 4-head, now I have an 8-head. It's no joke. It's 8 fingers. And it's just that because I have a mature hairline. False. You got the same hairline you had when you were in 11th grade. But those follicles have been shut down and they're waiting for you to restore them back. So what am I trying to say? The follicle death code is false. I'm not saying they're lying because they don't have the necessary information, never have tried to do what I've done. Some people have. I've read different theories on people. But what I'm saying is that it's still pretty 1 out of a couple of millions, right? It really is, okay? So they don't die. That's the beautiful thing about this message. They don't. You can regrow all of your hair. It's going to take some time considerations. Time, believe me, time is, that's all I can say about that. But I understand it. It takes a lot more to regrow your hair than to lose it. So if you can stop from losing your hair, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. But if you've lost it, you can restore it. It's time to renounce the whole follicle death cult. Study the medicines. Most of them are just trying to halt it from starting. But what about you? This is for you, okay? So that's my video for today. Hopefully something here has helped you to halt hair loss and or restore it. If so, hit the like or subscribe. If not, give another video a chance. I am pretty sure you'll find something interesting. But if I can do it, I've renounced the whole follicle death cult years ago, and I'm very happy for it. You can do it too. Let's get you back to the barber.